Demonstrations at the UN Climate Conference today from supporters of forest dwellers and indigenous peoples whose rights are not being respected, they say, by the Forest Compensation Scheme, REDD.
Governments have refused to include any language that recognizes the full rights of indigenous peoples. So we are standing here with our brothers and sisters from the forested regions who are concerned, who are asking for suspension of any discussions or implementation of the REDD initiative. They have many concerns that have not been answered. Policies of consultation and free and prior informed consent have not been implemented. They are concerned about the World Bank, who has a poor history in the implementation of its programs throughout indigenous territories. Many World Bank initiatives have resulted in human rights violations and have been a form of genocide against indigenous peoples. So that's why we are here to support our indigenous brothers of the forested region who have only asked that there be language in the documents that come out of here that recognize the full rights of indigenous peoples by adopting the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples.
The executive director of the conference, Ivo de Boer, was asked by journalists today about another controversial idea, that of including nuclear power and carbon capture and storage in the clean development mechanism. The implication being that it would divert focus and resources from the development of renewable energy.
This one falls into the crystal ball category as well. I must say at the start that I have not yet seen an emission reduction scenario that gets you to where the scientists tell us we need to go without nuclear and without carbon capture and storage. So I haven't yet seen anybody, or nobody has yet told me how we can get to those kinds of emission reductions without carbon capture and storage and without nuclear energy. So I'm assuming for the time being that those will be an important part of the solution. At the moment, neither nuclear energy nor carbon capture and storage are eligible under the Clean Development Mechanism. Will that change? One of the discussions that are taking place here is exactly on the issue of including carbon capture and storage in the CDM. And there are proposals on the table. There's a proposal basically there's a proposal to not allow it. There's a proposal to allow it in full. And there's a proposal to allow it in a limited way through a number of pilot projects. Where that's going to go is hard to say at this moment in time. That'll have to become clear over the coming minutes. But there are very strong feelings on both sides. Okay.
Another important theme emerged in weekend meetings where climate activists and experts were raising serious concern about how the world could adapt to the impact of climate change, something they felt was being neglected by the national delegates with their focus on agreeable targets for mitigating CO2 emissions.
And one strong feeling I get is that only mitigation is driving the negotiating process at the moment. And adaptation is expected to pick up the pieces, the residual damage. Well, this is tragic, especially because the policymakers don't have a clear understanding of how much we can adapt to and at what cost. And indeed, we don't know that yet. So this is a very dangerous process to have two tools in one's armoury to meet a challenge, adaptation and mitigation, but only one of those tools informing the debate in a strong way. Now, I know you've made progress significantly in strengthening the role of adaptation in this, but it's still a poor sister, is it not? If you haven't seen it already, then we have been on other planets, and that's unfortunate, but this is one of two summaries put together by all the authors of IPCC Working Group 2, and it's in the technical summary. You can pull it down from the website ipcc.ch. This is a sector-by-sector walk into the future through the key impacts. There is also a
Professor Parry's results showed the impacts of the range of likely temperature rises. The debate centres on what will happen to all of us if the temperature rise exceeds 2 degrees. So what level of cuts in CO2 emissions will have to be made to stabilise at 2 degrees?
There are a number of numbers floating around concerning 2 degrees, but the most prominent one at the moment, which is quite troubling, is that a 50% cut globally, 50% cut by 2050, so 80% in developed countries, let's say, and much less in developing countries, would achieve this. What it in fact achieves, and Vicky Pope is in the audience from the Hadley Centre, and several other modellers like Mastrandia and Shelby have said this, it achieves something like a 50-50 chance of not exceeding 2 degrees. Something like this, right? There, the median, but the range is quite uncertain, and there's a good chance of going beyond it here. And I'm not sure they appreciate that. And that leaves for you in the impacts community not only a wide range of uncertainty, but a much more extensive impacts field. We're into 2 billion here, estimated short of water by Nigel Arnell and his team and published, and millions at risk of flooding in the Asian megadeltas.
Unimaginable consequences then for billions of us in every aspect of our lives. And that's if there is an agreement in Copenhagen next year. But what if that slips?
Here's the 50% for immediate action, and this is the one they're working with, and this is the one the NGOs are pressing them for. But isn't it more realistic to think of slippage on this? Either a Copenhagen agreement which isn't fully implemented, or a partial agreement that is fully implemented. This is a 10-year delay, peaking in 2025, and this is a 10-year delay, peaking in 2035. Well, I'm quite shocked by these. This hasn't been published yet. It's in a paper at the back, going for publication. I think this is more likely. I think this has huge implications for the impacts and adaptation community, because it substantially extends, there's the whole thing, the range of effort that's required of you. That's why I'm troubled by the process, I hope I'm not right, by which I feel that the other tool, this adaptation, is not being part of the negotiating process. It's being left to pick up the piece. The pieces, and only this seems to be. And it doesn't seem to be working. There's potentially a lot of slippage.